Number 73, Sam Speedwell by Denise Lawrence. Spreading joy wherever he strode in his perennial long shorts, Sam Speedwell, the postman, had already won the hearts of his clientele long before lockdown. With a jolly hello, a gleaming smile, piercing blue eyes, gaze honed like a batsman at the crease beneath his peaked cap. He always delivered much more than birthday cards and bills. Even the Rottweilers at number 58 had taken a shine to him. His long bony legs and huge boots are easily spotted, either heralding his rapid approach or evaporating into the horizon as if powered by the pendulum-like motion of his cavernous bag. Only a Mexican wave effect amidst happy customers was left in his slipstream. No discarded rubber bands or mail protruding from letterboxes, not on his watch. Since bursting free from his stressful management position to join Royal Mail, he had never looked back. Neither had he stopped moving. Indeed, he appeared to be in a constant state of propulsion, as, living up to his name, he gained momentum on his daily round, a thin streak of red and tan flashing by, dispensing personal greetings, friendly waves, and postal items in equal measure, the latter launched through letterboxes with G-force gusto. He knew all those fortunate enough to be on his round by the formal title on their envelopes, calling out to them politely when on foot, or waving wildly from his red van, which he drove with Formula One vivacity. Now his services are in increased demand to meet the online order surge, but in no way are they diluted. In his unique way, and at an even faster pace, he manages to combine social distancing with personal service and bonhomie. This, of course, greatly appreciated, especially by those for whom he is their only human contact on some days. Number 74, Miss Marigold Price by Peter Sergison. For many years, Miss Marigold Price had run a tight ship as head of our internal secret service, commonly known as MI5. During the hours of daylight, her ladyship went under the code name of Spitfire, because she moved like grease lightning whenever she called her team in for training or a new assignment. She seemed to descend from on high, landing with the enthusiasm and passion of all things top secret, and even after dark she was always prompt and never wasted time on chit-chat. Her transport was a large black saloon car, and she sat perched in the rear with the car door half open before the chauffeur had time to apply the brakes. She was a pre-war relic from Yorkshire and dressed accordingly in such a style befitting her status as a senior officer responsible for home security. Her image was a little dated, but wearing her best chapel hat, which only saw the light of days on Sundays, plus her tweed suit and, of course, brown shoes, the image was of a country lady about town. Her trimmings included a commodious handbag, gloves, a walking stick, and at times a small leather briefcase embossed with the royal coat of arms. In the world of espionage, many images come to mind. Spies, fast cars, and being shaken, not stirred. None of these applied to Miss Price, who when off duty used a minibus complete with a push bike for short trips and a canoe for coastal activities. Common sense was her watchword. Her current task was to help purge the country of a new enemy, one which could not be seen, but was being felt by all communities across our small island. Number 75, Miss Brown by Imogen Grubin. It wasn't that she looked like a mouse, more that her teeth, pinched and inward-leaning, and eyes, small and twitchy, seemed to have something of the mouse in them. It was perhaps lucky that she was a French teacher, and so always twitching to hear the mispronunciations and illegal talking during her class. It was perhaps unlucky that she was a French teacher, as we, the students, did nothing more than stew in dislike during the hour-long classes, where she would recapitulate French grammar, explaining rules that none of us understood or wanted to understand, expounding on the difference between la voile and le voile, and singing la, le, les in a hypnotic trance, until one by one we dropped off to sleep, she continuing to breathe in her frustration in big gulps, one after the other, making herself seem rounder and rounder. Miss Brown, the Miss, firmly pronounced by her at each year's new introductions, was not a favourite, and the abiding memory I have of her is of her round face, pinched teeth, and small eyes, lowering themselves in front of me to hiss at my work. Others, I am sure, had different memories, her bouncing along the corridors, we scattering out of the way to avoid being bounced off her and sent into the opposite direction, or her moments at the beginning of term, when we did not yet know what we were in for, when she would ply us with cake and French bingo to lure us into false sense of calm. But maybe this is unfair. It is, after all, only a memory. She disappeared one year and none of us knew why, and so this is all I have left of her. Number 76, Professor Whitty by Roy Jamieson. Before the end of January 2020, who'd heard of him? This gangly, balding, self-effacing man, standing awkwardly alongside the Prime Minister and telling us, no, instructing England what to do. Professor Whitty, Chief Medical Officer, NHS. He looked to have been taken away from his chemistry set, divested of his white lab coat, given a brief makeover, and told to plot the route out of coronavirus pandemic problems pronto. First impressions can be wrong. As the weeks progress, we learn more about this nerdy professor's character, his unflappability and ultra-precision, the fact that he conjures the minimum words to define maximum meaning, his measured responses to questions, a nod of acknowledgement, then hitting the right note, his height enabling him to see into the future, and his planetary eyes allowing him to navigate scientific nous for the best possible outcomes for his fellow countryfolk. It is immediately apparent this man talks facts and truth. No disputing his clear thinking, the fluent, semi-staccato voice underlining his judgments. No showman he, his long limbs remain mollified even though carrying heavy responsibility. He literally has our lives in his hands. We believe his reasoning even about the worst pandemic scenarios, reassuring all with positives in his softly assertive delivery. He enlightens and has the air of one bestowing confidence, a man who has known this virus firsthand and fought it off. He dealt with Ebola and Novichok, but they didn't grip the nation like CV-19. His demeanour is of a man who can expound what he thinks in scientific terms, but has a private life that is exactly that, private. What interests him? Who cares? He is an interesting man, and when Boris put out the call, where sense was needed, Professor Christopher Whitty answered, the right man at the right time. Number 77, George Smith by Sandra McKay. George Smith was just an ordinary man. He'd not done anything remarkable at any time during his 76 years of life, unless you counted getting married to Joyce. He thought that was pretty remarkable, considering Joyce had been the best-looking girl in the street, and he had been the one that she had chosen to go out with and eventually marry. He had nursed Joyce through the last days of her life, not wanting her to be taken away from him to the hospice. The carers had been wonderful coming in to help, but she was all he had, and he hadn't wanted her to feel he was giving up on her. She had left him a list of things that he needed to do around the house, and he was now coping okay. He'd even managed to master the washing machine. Now this wretched coronavirus was everywhere, and he was supposed to stay in, but he needed to be brave and do something. He decided to be one of the NHS volunteer heroes. He'd got his okay and sorted out his app on the phone and logged in. To his surprise, after only 2 days, he got a message that a gentleman nearby needed medication collecting. George was over the moon. He got himself ready, best jacket. Why was it a bit tight? Clean shoes, and then checked that he didn't have any lunch down the front of his shirt. Looking in the mirror, combing his grey wisps of hair, he caught himself smiling for the first time in months. He felt a bit guilty, but knew Joyce would approve of him being useful. He was only going this bit to help someone in need, not a hero. Maybe the gentleman who needed him was the hero, saving George. Number 78, Mary, by Marie Day. Shuffling into her twilight years, Mary thought herself in fairly good shape. Apart from arthritic knees, lower back pain, and RSI in both wrists. If she was a little stiff exiting bed most mornings, that could be rectified by a few exercises. Balance restored by standing on one leg cleaning her teeth, meaning she could forget the wobbles encountered whilst putting on her socks. Leaning against the door helped, although, to be honest, her Pilates teacher wouldn't have approved. Although living alone for 5 years since her partner died, most mornings she wasn't sure how many would be joining her for breakfast. Belle would definitely be there. Descending the stairs, the head count could be anything from 1 to 4, breaking bread or opening pouch for the first meal of the day. Belle wrapped herself round Mary's legs, the source of her name jingling from her collar. Busying herself with her starter task of washing bowls and dishes, large and small this morning, Mary was greeted by a motley collection of feline customers for her all-day breakfast. Being fluent in Moggy, Tabby, and a smattering of Tomcat, she could converse with whoever turned up for the first sitting. All were greeted according to their people name, if known, or their Mary moniker, if she had had to guess. Belle, as sitting tenant, was always served first. As lady of the house, she preceded her mostly gentlemen callers. No other tasks attempted till all visitors were served and satisfied with the menu on offer. In an awkward dance, more conga than samba, she manoeuvred around her guests, finally partaking of her own breakfast. After the repast, when all were gone, alone, Mary listens. The newspaper drops through the letterbox. Catch-up time with the world before the lunchtime rush. Number 79, Miss Nigella, by Janine Beecham. A woman of glorious ripeness was Miss Nigella, a kitchen Eve, a figure suggestive of peaches and dewy nectarines. Her copper saucepans gleamed as if glad to see her. There was such deliciousness air in her lightest asides, in her caressing voice and impish smile. Her very name lay on the tongue, as did syllabub, apple jelly, or goose with truffles. To see her sinking her teeth into flaking buttery pastry, or a featherlight sponge replete with jam and cream, would have caused palpitations in the most monkish larder. Miss Nigella kept a merry table, in which wine was drunk with delight rather than cold-nosed judgment. Some said unhygienic and unprofessional as she licked her fingers with abandon, but thousands delighted in her abundant charms and clamoured for her recipes, and would have paid money to watch Miss Nigella bite into a fig. Such was this dark beauty, a woman who seduced with sweetmeats, a woman who could make even watery gruel taste of cream and honey. Number 80. Royston Alexander Male by David Matthews. My father's name being Male, and my Christian name's Royston Alexander, I came to be known as Royal Male by my colleagues. Few of the customers in Greendale knew my name, and to most of them I was Posty, who wore uniform shorts in summer and winter, and having earphones in as I trudged around. Had they looked closer, they would have seen that I walked lopsided after years of carrying the mailbag over my right shoulder, but further degeneration has been halted, as now I have to push the truck, which helps to balance my gait. However, the truck is overloaded with mail to deliver and mail collected from post boxes, which the vans no longer service, and as a result, I'm developing curvature of the spine. Added to that, I have swollen ankles, corns and varicose veins. Then the COVID-19 pandemic struck, and I was among the essential workers. I realized I had a bigger role in life than Posty, as all the customers were vulnerable or on lockdown, and they needed something or someone to break the boredom. So every day I donned a different fancy dress guise to do my round, and I became a TV and social media hero. Instantly there were photos of me as Spider-Man, Batman, the Hulk, Woody from Toy Story, Super Mario, and even Wonder Woman going viral. The only downside to this is that with many of the guises requiring masks, still no one sees. I am clean-shaven, with a thatch of silver hair. Even when I knock at doors for signatures, no one sees the face, and no one has ever asked what I am listening to through my earphones. Everyone knows Posty and the superheroes, but no one sees the real Roy. Number 81. Miss Thunder by Jed Sheerin. Begging your indulgence, discerning reader, lest I have misconstrued a momentous meeting between two modern minds concerning a most heated issue of your times. Notwithstanding her much publicized crossing and its acknowledged trials, the diminutive younger half of said couple displayed sphinx-like composure, walking amongst the bemused representatives of the untried notions. With one skeptically, some might say strategically, arched eyebrow, that elfin demeanour gave hint of coolly measured detachment. The scene, reminiscent, yet others might credulously claim, of a certain earlier child prepared, nay, destined to refute and confound the wise. Her light brown hair worn, simply parted and pulled back. This student Pocahontas in plain, smock-like dress of pastel shade, moccasin shod like many a diffident contemporary, appeared nonetheless ready to state her requirements. Indeed, your Nordic oracle, no timid supplicant she, spoke to power with neither please sir nor preamble, proclaiming with a terse perspicuity belying tender years. Missions, there are too many missions. Why can't we have less? Complete, anticipatory silence filled that grand chamber until the older, more substantial player in the piece, none other than butter-haired, red, white and blue suited and becapped Dollar N. Rump, the very beacon and source of greatness restored, blazed forth. Less? Who's asking for less? Well, if it isn't little Greta, Miss Platts herself, with a very nasty question. Any semblance of unaffected charm abruptly vanished as Power's interlocutor, now indignant youth personified, flashed back. Change is coming whether you like it or not, and I want to know. I've never mentioned change, flamed Rump, incandescent. But here you are wanting to know. More exchanges of cordially philanthropic warmth were immediately forthcoming, but the tableau before me darkened prematurely, and its noises stopped entirely. And there, my patient reader, on that note of unfinished business, I must leave you. Number 82, Peregrine Primrose, by Diane Manning. Peregrine Primrose does not live up to his name. There is nothing attractive or appealing about his nature. He is a bully and a busybody, a master of malicious gossip. All these unpleasant traits are exacerbated by his love of the demon drink. What a sight he is strutting about in an ugly short black dressing gown. He never seems to get dressed, displaying his gnarled and knobbly knees with a pair of shabby socks skimming his skinny ankles. His slippers do their best to slip off his feet at regular intervals, as if to escape from their unpleasant confines. His sense of self-importance puffs up his chest like a triumphant turkey. His face is so red, so bright, that it would put a prize-winning tomato to shame. The beady eyes are never still, they are dark and menacingly mobile. He is usually downed a surfeit of Scotch, so his words are savage and slurred, spoken in confrontation rather than conversation. He is always seen with a stubby cigarette in his stained fingers, and is followed by a trail of foul and noxious swirling smoke. His hacking cough is loud and his lungs gasp for air, but lack of breath never stops the venom and the vitriol. He has even been known to let out a belligerent belch when he meets someone he particularly dislikes, a disgusting and disturbing event not to be experienced by the faint-hearted. There is nothing that can be said to redeem Peregrine Primrose. His bullying nature knows no bounds. Just when you think he can't get any more unpleasant, he does. Number 83, Qwerty Ken, by Cullen Warnock. Kenneth McCapple, or Qwerty Ken as he was nicknamed, sat on the empty rush-hour train, momentarily looking through the sparkling disinfected window. The plainless, cloudless sky was free for birds at last, gulls loudly outnumbering all other contemporaries. Qwerty Ken's avian features predominated. Crow's feet creased deeply as he squinted into the bright southerly sun. Each crease had carried tears of laughter, sorrow, and pain. Today they amplified his smile, and their origin, hooded pale blue eyes, flashed sharply, contrasting with his unblemished sclera, its white matching his swept-back feathery hair, which formed a groomed crest setting off his long, slim face, punctuated with the most magnificent aquiline nose. The view outside saw nature's palette complement his own, blues in sky and sea, white as the tidal wave crests and deserted sands. His grog-blossomed cheeks warmed in the direct sunlight, and he was glad to be nearing the journey's end. His long, swollen, knuckled fingers formed talons that tapped swiftly at the keyboard in readiness for the rescue ahead. The keys were his tools, and he crafted their miraculous healing output like no other in the region. Each expert keystroke unlocked the emergency circumstance relayed to him earlier that day. The computers are down. We have patients waiting. We desperately need your help, QWERTY Ken's GP sister exclaimed down the phone. Carriage doors signalled and slid wide, releasing its athletic frame into an effortlessly fast stride. White cotton shirt with sleeves rolled back to the elbows, blue chinos, and mirror-polished brown brogues cutting his dash to the nearby surgery. He was ready to resuscitate the ailing IT neural system with his miracle-making laptop. Desktops rapidly sprang to life. Patients logged. Sister smiled, and QWERTY Ken smiled back. Today, he was the key worker. Number 84, Constance by Lynn Walsh. Constance is the obvious choice to man the office during lockdown. Of an indeterminate age, living alone with her cat in a cosy city centre flat within walking distance of the office, and free of all fractious children or quarrelsome menfolk. Tall, thin and impeccably dressed, even on dress-down days, she glides around the office in pleated skirt or elegant trouser suit. Constance's quietly competent presence smooths egos and calms tempers. Her finely boned face, livened by dark, intelligent eyes, is framed by a short, neat bob, with colouring as discreet as Constance is in nature. Constance assists high-profile lawyers, quietly correcting grammatical inaccuracies and demystifying electronic time recordings. She shields erudite lawyers, well-versed in law, but ground down by edicts from HR managers with fine degrees but little idea of how a law firm actually ticks. Elderly partner Henry is plagued by schemes for open-plan workspaces and hot desking. His office has been his sanctuary, stuffed with cabinets of treasured cases, his desk barricaded by crenellated walls of bulging buff folders, and his keyboard perched on a tottering pile of unread law journals. "How can I think a case through in the clamour of open plan?" he cried, testily throwing a useless stapler at the cherished wall and secretly agonizing how he could listen to the test cricket in open plan. Now tasked with clearing Henry's room before his enforced removal from it, Constance, gloved and masked, is deep in piles of archived files when Henry phones from his home study. "Desist, Constance. Government guidance is to stop hot desking in the interests of hygiene," as Constance later confides to Percy, the cat. Next thing you know, the government will order only one worker per office. There's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. Percy purrs in concurrence.